Oh, someone turn that off. Well, it would be great if we had less fossil fuel power plants and more renewable power usage in the UK. So this video is actually going to tell you how me and you, doing some mapping can make that happen, make more renewable energy be used. So it's going to be a bit in-depth probably in a longer video. So I'm going to put up here the sections and timings of the video about the current UK quarterly project for OpenStreetMap. So first of all, I'll tell you about what the project is and why it's important. Then I'm going to tell you about how to map them. We're talking about rooftop solar panels. So I'll talk about how we go about finding where they are, doing the surveying and taking notes, and also editing it so it's into OpenStreetMap. And then last of all, I'll do a section on, are we finding them? How well are we doing this mapping? What is the effect? So, so if you want to skip, I'll put some times up somewhere there when I edit the video. But all of this ties in together and is important. So I've got my stats here. There's about 80,000 rooftop solar panels in Britain, and they provide half of the country's solar capacity, the other half being provided by large solar farms and that sort of thing. So solar power can't be controlled. It depends on whether it's a sunny day or mediocre day, but it does affect the balance of the supply and demand to the electricity grid. I won't talk too much about that because you'll find my expertise stops. But on the project page, and the links in the description, there's some more information. Essentially, the national grid needs to make sure that there's enough electricity being put into it that is being used and that it's balanced. However, an uncertainty in forecasting how much solar energy is being produced means that they need to have standby generators. So coal power plants and the like need to be on standby in case there's not enough electricity coming into the grid from the rooftop solar panels, and then they need to do that. So even if they're not using those less environmentally friendly generators, even if they're not being used, they're probably on standby in case the demand's needed. It's a big task, but it's one we can help in a small way. So you'd think rooftop solar panels, you've probably seen them around on people's houses. The data about them is actually quite limited and restricted. So I think there are some sources, but it's not open data, it's hard to get to. And it's limited in what it gets, whereas with OpenStreetMap, of course, how detailed the data is not limited. We can map the precise location of those rooftop solar panels. We can also say things like which way are they facing? Are they facing north, or 10 degrees to the east, or 180 degrees if they're facing south? And we can say how big they are, how many modules, and information like that. And that allows us to give that data as part of OpenStreetMap. Anyone can download it, whether they're the government or an energy company, or whether they're just a member of the public, perhaps a campaign group. And the data can be used to predict the amount of solar energy for a given day, combining that with weather forecasts or weather information. It can be used to help inform searches for new and suitable sites. But also I think it's quite powerful is it can be used by people to promote and campaign for more solar panels. Wouldn't it be great to say that County Durham has this much solar panels and we generated this much electricity, and put it into real terms. So like, you know, County Durham powered so many houses from solar energy. If we had that information combined with the weather, it'd be really good. You could also use it on a smaller scale, such as saying, oh, well, the community centre over in Belmont has solar panels. Why can't we put solar panels on our community centre in Framwellgate Moor, or things like that? And I think just this extra data always helps people, makes us more informed, more powered, as well as the national grid and energy companies using it for their technical reasons. So the next section would be how to map them. Well, first of all, let's get a high-vis jacket and go out and map. Oh, hang on 1 moment first. I'm going to be using a lot of my favourite app for mapping, OSM And. So before you leave your house, you might want to download that onto your phone. And I'll talk through. It'll be easier to go somewhere where I'm mapping to talk through that. But if you want to use less of your data plan while you're still on Wi-Fi, download OSM And install it. Click on the menu, click download maps, and you can download the map for your area. For example, I've got the northeast of England, and that's free if you only do it once, and it means you can use the maps offline, which is great for general use. I also suggest you watch this whole video about how to survey and edit them, as well as the last section on progress before going out, because I'll try and slowly build up the information. Oh, right, high-vis jacket on. You don't need one of these, but it's always good when I'm stopping randomly on the pavements. And off we go. So, it's worth getting to know OSM And just by walking around and keeping an eye on it, or using it to navigate. Try and show you this on the camera. So this is the map. You can move it around a course. That blue dot shows where we are. I can centre on where I am now, right by this path. And yeah, zoom in and out, usual sort of thing. Down here on the bottom left, this 3 lines gets you the menu. So I've spent some time configuring the map as I use it a lot. These things I want to see. I quite like putting in the overlay map of Microsoft Earth, which is aerial imagery, and the transparency sidebar, when I go back to the map, is at the bottom, so I can bring in some aerial imagery if I want to check somewhere that's not very well mapped on OpenStreetMap, and can pan around and see different things. But as I say, go through particularly the configure and map section and see how you might want it. Also on this menu, an important thing for today is to scroll down to plugins, and there's a few things I do. Trip recording can be useful for my normal mapping activity to record the exact line I take, but near the bottom is OSM editing. So this will appear like this when you look at it first. Click on disabled and that will enable it. Then in settings, to use this you'll need to type in your OpenStreetMap username and password, which hopefully you have one already. If not, go to openstreetmap.org to sign up. and I tick offline editing because it's a bit better, and that just configures it, as we'll see in a moment, to allow us to edit OpenStreetMap from this app, but also to add OpenStreetMap notes. The thing to do is to, as I say, get outside and actually find these solar panels on rooftops. So walk around residential areas, maybe places you know or you're walking anyway. It's worth being aware that solar panels are more likely to face south rather than north, because you get more sun, more hours of sun if you're facing the equator. They may face other directions, but if you're walking along a road that goes east-west, look on the north side, because those houses will face south rather than the south side, or look both ways. And just walk along. If you've watched the whole video, you'll see there's some tips at the end. But walk along around residential areas, and sooner or later you turn a corner and see some solar panels. This is when you switch to OSM and well, first of all you want to note a few things about it. So which way the solar panels are facing. These are facing south, or to the footpath, I may take in mind, and then count the solar panels. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 modules there. And then this is what we look at on OSM and on our phone. So here we go. I need to identify where the house is. It's just on Bolton Close that I've seen with the solar panels. And so I can see it there, I can get the right house. If buildings haven't been mapped, I can use that slider at the bottom that I configured for aerial imagery. And see a bit closer. And to add it on here, I hold down on the point, which gets me an orange marker. And in the bottom right, I can go actions. Now there's two ways to continue from this point. My favourite method is the OSM note method. So I type that, and it lets me put a message about something that's missing or wrong on the map. So solar panels, and I said there were 10 modules facing south. Now the benefit of the note is it allows us to use general English. You can even develop a shorthand, but make sure you include all the information. Ideally, the way the panels are facing would be in degrees, so I could say 180 here, it might be about 175, but with the note that isn't important at this stage. When I'm done, I do create note, and then click upload. With my username, you can upload anonymously, but it's helpful, as we'll see later, to use my OSM account. And that goes up, and anyone on OpenStreetMap website will be able to see that note. And they can add the solar panels onto OpenStreetMap, or we'll look at doing that ourselves. It's also helpful because I can see here the note that's there, and I can see other notes on OSM and now that have been written, such as this one I did a few years ago where I need to check the footpaths. So it's not limited to solar panels, but we can go around and collect a number of data about this, and do it for each house. Occasionally we're counting the modules rather than the individual cells, which is quite obvious. Sometimes they'll be separate or not in a rectangle, in different configurations, but we add them all as one section and just count up the modules. If there's different modules facing different ways, such as this photo, then I'll do 2 points that are close by each other, so I can do a certain number of modules one way and another way. There's a somewhat faster way to add the solar panels, skipping the note section. So round the corner from this one, just about there, I also noticed a house of solar panels. So once again, I've held down to get the orange marker, click actions, but this time I'm going to create a point of interest. And it doesn't have a name because solar panels don't tend to have names. The type, if I type in power generator, we then need to go advanced, and it's added the tag power generator, but I need to add my own tags here, and typing in generator colon, I think it's colon modules. I can then put in the value of 7, and I can put generator See, the trouble with this is you have to get the spelling correct as it's going straight into OpenStreetMap. So generator orientation, it was facing east, so 90 for 90 degrees. And then I will continue adding the other tags, but I had to remember them, which is a bit trickier when I'm out and about, and it's not as fast as adding a note, which I can do quickly even if I'm in a moving car or a bus, or if I'm just doing something else and I want to add a single one. But then we will go save at the bottom, click upload, OK, and it loads it up straight to OpenStreetMap. So that doesn't appear on this map because it doesn't show power generators. I would also need to download the new map data from OSM and, which normally takes about a week to update. But that's one way that works for some people. So, after adding notes about a few solar panels, such as those two, I've done them as separate points. I got spotted again mapping by a friend, so I got to pause, pop in and have a cup of coffee, which is always good halfway through mapping. No point having a strenuous day. And then I'm going to continue around Newton Hall, this suburb of Durham, to find more solar panels. So, once you've done some notes mapping the solar panels, discovering where they are, return back to your computer, and if I show you the screen, you can see what I do. So, I'm on the website, openstreetmap.org or osm.org. In the top right, you can see I've logged in. My username is Living with Dragons. When you're logged in, it will say something different. If I click that and click profile, my profile, you can see information about me. if I click my notes, you can see the notes I've added. And we can click one of these and it shows that example one I did. Another way to get to this, if we close that, is to look at the map, and on the right hand side, click layers. There's a tick box called map notes. You can see there's a few around here. So if we zoom in, we can click and see that one that we did. Then if I zoom in on it, I can edit the map, which you may be familiar with, by clicking edit, or from the drop down list. I'm going to go with ID browser, ID editor, which is in some ways easier to use. So sometimes it takes a bit of time for the aerial imagery to appear. We can see different objects mapped, such as that power generator, the solar panels that I mapped directly. But to see the notes, because they've disappeared now, we have to, on the editor, go to background settings. Not background settings. So, but on the editor, go to this one, which is map data. It's a little line and square. And we can add the layer OpenStreetMap notes. And we can hide that away. So you see these little crosses, and if I put my mouse over, I can see who added that note. Oh, it was me living with dragons. And I can see the text description there. I can also see the date of how long ago they looked at that. So, solar panels, we're not going to draw the full area because we don't have a lot of detail enough to do that. But we're going to draw it as a point. So we click the point, and then we click where the solar panels are. And the aerial imagery from Bing that we can use helps me check that I'm doing it within the building. So it was on this side, on that corner, and there's my point. An ID makes it really easy to map various different things. In the search, I can just type in solar and select solar panel. It's not, which helps. So it suggests some attributes which I may know, such as the operator or the power output. It's unlikely we know this. If we look down at all tags, there's 5 that it's added these tags. And if you're using JOSM or one of the other editors, this is the technical way to know what to add. I'll probably show that on the screen for you there. So it's automatically said solar panels are a power generator. The method they use is photovoltaic. Output is electricity, yes, and their source is solar. And there's the specific type. So we can also look at the link that I will provide on the project page when we look at this project to map rooftop solar panels. There's some information here about tagging them, and there's some specific things that we would like to know. There's also a comment about thermal water panels, which get tagged slightly differently, but I didn't find any of those to show you. So back here, one of the things it wanted was to add the key, if you can see that, I copied it in, generator, colon, solar, colon, modules, and the number of this one, I'll have to check, 10, I said. So 10, 10 modules. It's also helpful to put in location is roof. That distinguishes it as a bit different from the large solar farms. And also, if we put in generator orientation, we can say which direction it is. Now, I said this was south-facing. It's not quite directly south. It wants me to put a value in degrees. So, if it was degrees, if it was directly south, it would be 180. A bit less, maybe 170. And I've not found an easy way with ID Editor to show the compass to work out what angle that building's facing. My current solution to this, if you need help with compass points to degrees, is to have a little bit of paper or an actual stationary compass and put it over the screen like this to line it up. It might help a bit. So 170 or 157, I'd say it's more than that. It's not, oh, maybe it is 157, maybe 160. I think I'll change what I thought and put as 160. Once I've done that, I can continue looking at the others. So here's one I tried to add, but it will be better located there. And I have a note here, there's 7 facing east and 7 facing west. So I'm going to add these as 2 different points, because then I can add the different orientations. So generator orientation, and so east would be 270, but using my little thing, maybe a bit less than that, 260. And you don't need to be incredibly accurate. If you're to the nearest 10 or 20 degrees, it should be good enough. And if someone thinks you're slightly wrong, they can always fix that and change it. I need to say that it's on the roof. So will be 80 because it faces the other way. This one I've got to put how many modules there are. There's 7. So it becomes quite helpful to compare that you've got all the right tags. It's more complicated than mapping other things. That's because it's very specific and we want to map it differently to similar things such as big solar farms or power plants. And as you map these, you can go to the note and go, added this into the map data, and close and comment that one. And the same with this, added it to data, and close it, and they'll turn green, which is bit more rewarding. So then I walked around here and didn't see any solar panels until I got here. So again, we add a point, we go solar panel. There were, how many were there? 14. 14 modules. Location is on the roof, and the generator orientation is, let's use my doodah, it's about 250 degrees, I think. Let's see if I've got that vertical. Yeah, 250. There we go. You can also, didn't show that very well, if you get something wrong, you can always drag the point, or you can right click on it and delete it. Don't forget to say that you added it and close and comment. If you select an object, such as a point, you can then do Control and C on the keyboard, go to the next one, Control and V, and then plop it down where you want it. Just remember that the things to change here are the modules. So if I read that note, there were 14 modules. So that's the same as the last one. And the orientation is facing Norham, I put, rather than a compass direction. This is because those solar panels were on the back of the house, and I actually saw them when I was walking by Norham Road. So I can see that and still use my doodah to say that that's about 140 degrees. So I'll change it there. And then go back to the note, check I got everything from that, say that I added it, and close and comment. Look at other notes. This isn't about solar panels, it's about footpaths. So I could add that in a standard way, or I could skip it if I'm just focusing on solar panels. So that's a footpath there. And in the same way I can close that, or I can leave a comment asking for more information, or just giving more information without adding it. But we do this. There were two here on houses very close to each other. So I can go back to this one, Control C to copy, Control V and click it down there. And this is, I use my mouse wheel to zoom in. But this had 8 modules and it was facing towards the road that that house is on. So that's again about 250. And to save me working out the orientation, because the houses are the same way, I'll Control C and then I'll paste it there. This one has more modules though, but that's the only thing I need to change. Remembering that I said the generator modules, said the orientation, and I said the location is roof. And then again close these notes to say I've added them. And when we've done a few of those, we can see that in the top right our save button has 10 changes. So if I click that, as with all OpenStreetMap edits, it's good to put a comment, so I can say, and it even suggests some similar ones that I've done in the past. Adding solar panels in Newton Hall for the UK quarterly project. Something like that's a good change set comment, or I might go seen while on an afternoon stroll. And it asks me for my sources, so I will put survey because I actually went out and surveyed these. I might also put a comma and say OSM notes, but they're generally my own notes, so survey is enough. And if you want, you can tick to have someone review your edits. But I'm happy I've done this right. I can see what I've added. And I'll click upload. And it takes a moment. But then view the edits. We can see them on OpenStreetMap. We can see all these OSM notes have now turned green because they're done. And after a bit of time, they'll fade away. The solar panels don't appear on the main OpenStreetMap website. That's because you can't show everything. But let's talk about knowing if they are mapped. We're on to our next section. We know why we're mapping. We've done some mapping as well as editing it into OpenStreetMap. Now we'll want to see if there's going to be any blossoming of our work. So I've conveniently moved my desk just to show you a different view of my back garden. And if we go back to the project page on the OpenStreetMap wiki, we can scroll down and there's some tools we like. My favourite one of this is Gregory Williams's completion list. So he's been able to get some data from a register of these solar panels, and we can see down and look at, if we find Durham, County Durham, 16 rooftop solar panels to map, 1,400. I have to remember the titles of this. That's how many there are in total. And that means 1%, just over 1% have been mapped. And we can click that link that says Durham, and it takes us to a specific page. Now this page only updates each night, so that's why the ones I mapped in the video aren't counted here. But I've been doing some already. So it's able to break it down into smaller areas, and we can turn on the layers, the OSM objects, and see these are some I've been mapping. And if we click this area, it's just a statistical area. We can see that 8 rooftop solar panels have been mapped, but the register thinks there's 32. So I managed to find 25% of them. I've not quite gone as far as Neville's Cross in that area, so maybe they're mainly down there. Maybe I've missed some, I'm not sure. But we'll be able to look, and the area I was in this part of Newton Hall. There's 23 different rooftops to find. I'm not sure I saw them all, but I know I only looked at about 5 rows here. Probably did a quarter, so we'll see in the morning how much that changes. And maybe I'll be able to edit into the video shot of that. And you can go, of course, on this and check out your own area and see how well it's mapped, and see how your progress is doing. One thing that's helpful is if you untick comparison and instead do FIT for the register, it color codes these areas by how many there are. So it doesn't really know the size, but in this large area there are 60 to find. It's green. That might be better than just this area where there's 32 to find. Whereas if you look at Newton Hall, the area I was in, there's 23. Nearby, similar size area, but there's 44. So maybe I should have done that, and I would have found more with less walking. But I'll save that for another day. Or maybe if if you're near Newton Hall, you could find those for me. And of course, ideally, we want all of these to be mapped and all across the UK. So when we change it to comparison, none of these will be red or even yellow. They'll all be green. Finally, there's one of the other tools to look at is the Open Infrastructure Map. So this is very detailed mapping. It shows the big power stations, substations, the different electricity lines, including showing that data from OpenStreetMap that says what the voltage is, how much of an important line it is. And looking into Durham, I'm not sure, it doesn't seem to show my solar generators. That might be because this doesn't update as quickly as the other tool. So I can look at Nottingham, which I know some people, mainly Jerry, have done a lot of solar mapping over the last month. And if on the right we change the layers, I'm going to hide power because it gets confusing, and turn on solar generation. It does this heat map. In fact, if I keep power on, you can see these two red spots are generating a lot of electricity. That's because they're big solar farms. But this is a residential area. In fact, I've done some mapping of this area in the past, I think. And so you can see all the rooftop solar panels there. And when we zoom out, it's just a small pink spot. And the substations show up as well. So that's one place where this data that doesn't show up on OpenStreetMap is being displayed. And yeah, so, and it's not, OpenStreetMap isn't just about the main website, but again, this data could get downloaded, although we think of it as a map, it could get downloaded into a spreadsheet or into program code. And as I talked earlier, people could start doing things such as the national grid figuring out, combining that data with weather data and knowing how much power is going to be going into the grid from Nottingham compared to Durham on a given day, and balancing that with their knowledge of the demands of the grid. And maybe if there's enough of these yellow blobs around the country and red blobs, maybe then we'll need less of the other power stations. But first, we need to map them all. And now I'm standing up because if you know me, I don't like sitting down at my computer. I want to be up, walking along and doing some mapping. Which brings me on to my next section, which is video-related news. So Rob had this great idea for the UK that we could do 24-hour mapathons. He picked some areas around the UK, one for each month. And the August one, which will be August the 11th, is not too far from me, the area of Wansbeck, which includes Morpeth and some surrounding towns. So I'm going to go up there as for part of the day, maybe a huge chunk of it, and do some mapping, probably some solar panels, maybe some shops and house numbers. If anyone, there might be other people mapping. I won't be spending the full 24 hours of the day mapping, that's for sure. But I want to engage people and show them what is happening over the hours. I'll try and tweet from my Twitter account, which is Gregory Marler, so you can follow that. Also, one thing I'd like to try, whether it works, I don't know. What time I do it, I don't know. I'm going to try some live YouTube streaming. So if I've got a data connection and it all works, it won't be very fancy and edited nicely because I'll be live streaming from my phone while walking along. But that should be on Sunday, the 11th of August. So subscribe to the YouTube channel now if you're not already, and tick that bell for the notifications, and you'll get the alert when I start live streaming. Comment and see what I'm doing, or if you're nearby, drop me a message and we could arrange somewhere to meet. And you can see what I'm mapping and what I find, usual stuff. But for now, I think I've talked enough. It is a long video, but hopefully it's helpful. Do let me know how your mapping of solar panels gets on and where you're doing. I'd love to hear about it. Send me a message through OpenStreetMap or a comment down below in YouTube. A few people do that. It'd be great to know that this project's doing well. Oh, I did forget a stat that in the first month of this project for July, we've mapped a load of solar panels. It's really helping. Here's a stat that I can't remember, so I'll edit it on screen. So yeah, like the video, comment, but subscribe so you get the notification about the live stream.